I'm going to turn on that green underpainting there. Actually, I like the effect that that green has. I might leave that green on. Going to sample that green, go to the system palette. I'm actually going to darken it and desaturate it a bit. And I'm going to see about actually bringing this whole underpainting more along the lines of that green value there. So I'm going to turn off all these layers. Now back here on this green layer here, I'm going to go back to the freehand stroke, no alpha, and let's just brush this green back in here. Turn record mode on. Okay. For some reason it wasn't letting me re-record on that layer, so I'm just going to go ahead and record on this layer, which is above that green, and I'm going to spray this darker green in here. And we'll turn the rest of these layers on now. There we go. That's interesting. I like what's happening with that. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that. I think I'll create one more layer here. Rename it. We'll call it purple base. Switch color. Let's move this purple base on top of that green. Now let's see what this looks like if we give it a nice purple base. I like that quite a bit better, so actually I'm going to go ahead and spray that purple. It looks like it's covering everything right now, but it's not. As soon as I leave record mode, it's going to bring it back to the proper placement. Let me actually raise the value of that. There we go. That's much better for an underpainting. Okay, now go back into visibility mode, and there we go. We get a nice purple underpainting on this guy. So let's go ahead and save our work. It's doing a little bit of cleanup now. I'm going to sample base color here right along the border between the more lighter beige color and the purple base. And I'm going to paint that in along the back here. Turn up the RGB intensity on that. It's not quite different enough, so I'll sample that one. There we go. I want to make sure that I don't completely cover that base. I want to let some of that shine through. And remember, if you hold down the Alt key, you can erase. Right now I'm doing this on the base color overlay layer. Oops. I'm going to change to a single dot alpha here. There we go. And I'm going to change to a freehand stroke, and I'm going to manually squiggle. If I turn up my RGB intensity here, well, my RGB intensity is actually turned all the way up. So if you look closely, like right here, you should be able to see. There we go. I'm making squiggly lines. But I'm using a tablet which has pressure sensitivity on it, so I'm actually not pressing too terribly hard. which is giving me a lighter stroke. And go to the system palette, we can darken that a bit. I'm going to undo that, or just erase that stroke manually. There we go. And sample some of that lip color there. Go to the system palette and push this more towards a red. And that's way too strong. Don't want it to look like he's wearing lipstick. So we'll desaturate that a bit. And I do want to bring this back towards a purple. There we go. And we'll go back to the drag rectangle stroke and select that vein alpha. There we go. Dial back that RGB intensity a bit. And turn off X symmetry so I can break this symmetrical quality that's happening here along the center line. Holding down the Alt key so I can erase some of that. Now when you're doing poly paint, if you use the smooth brush, that is Shift, you can actually dial back the RGB intensity here and actually blur your poly paint. So it's a nice use of the blur brush there. And we'll save our work. Now if you find you've got a bunch of layers and you're having some trouble kind of keeping things straight and you want to clean up your layers a bit by collapsing them together, it's a pretty simple process. All you need to do is select a layer, for example this base color overpaint. If I've got this layer selected, I now have this button here called Merge Down. If I click Merge Down, what it's done is it's now merged that into the horn layer. Let me go ahead and focus in on this so you can see it all now. So here I've got purple veins in base color. If I click Merge Down, it just merged that down into my purple vein layer. So even though your layer that's underneath is technically sitting on top, when you merge down, you're merging down the list. So it's actually, it is rather confusing. It's an unusual way of considering it, but just think merging down means you're merging down the list. You're not actually merging down the layer stack the way it's laid out visually. So for example, if I select squiggles here, squiggles is sitting on top of spatter. But if I merge down, squiggles is going to merge into this color layer here. So watch what happens if I click merge down. It merges it down like that. So that allows you to clean up your layer stack and basically get rid of any layers that you really don't feel like you're going to want to access again. If you're comfortable with where things sit so far, you can start to collapse them down and then we'll work into them again. And it's very similar to the way you may work in Photoshop, where you have a lot of layers and then at some point in the process you may decide to collapse them down and then continue painting and creating new layers on top of that. So let's go ahead and save our work at this point. And I'm actually going to get rid of some of these base layers here. This green layer, or excuse me, this untitled layer right here that's turned off. Obviously that's not serving any purpose, so I will delete that layer. My purple base, that's definitely serving a purpose, so I'm going to leave that enabled. This base green I don't need, so I'll delete that. And this beige base, I think that's having a very slight effect, possibly. I'm going to leave that anyway, just in case I decide that I want to keep it, or I want to sample that base color again. I can always just isolate that layer and then go in and sample the color. So I'll save my work. Make sure we save it as a new iteration.